Alright, so in this video we're gonna actually do round edge shader stuff. Okay, we're gonna get started here. So first thing you need to know about the round edge shader is that you're gonna find it's a material parameter in any material that you create in Modo. So let me show you where that lives. So over here under your items list there's a tab called shading. That is your shader tree. Alright, so this is your material editor in Modo. It's awesome. Much more simplified than in 3D apps. Now there is a schematic material editor that you can dig down into if you want to do advanced stuff down the road. I don't find any need for that. Okay, just use the tree. It's awesome. It's set up just like Photoshop layers. So this will render from the top down. Okay. Now this is the default items that you're going to have in your shader tree. All right, it's usually going to have the final color output, the alpha output. Now these are your render outputs. So if I were to just snap off a render here, these are the outputs that it would automatically create. Okay, and then your main render item, and this is just where you set your, render settings. Okay, don't worry about that for now. And then your base shader. This is the main shader. This is how items are going to be shaded. Will there be shadows? Will it be visible camera? Things like that. Okay. And you can create more of these and put them in groups as well, but we won't need to do anything like that. So just go ahead and ignore these top items. What we are going to talk about is this green item. This is the actual material. All right. And the effect of it is all, meaning it's affecting all of these parameters here in the items properties list. Okay. It's affecting diffuse amount, diffuse color. If I change this color to red, okay, it's affecting that. Okay, it's specular amount, all that stuff. So if I wanted to tune, this is the default material that is automatically applied to every item that you create in Modo. Okay, this is the default base material. So this is like your Lambert one in Maya. Okay, now let's dig into this a little bit deeper. By default, it's applied to everything in the scene because there's nothing over the top of it, right? So let's select some polygons on this robo leg here. Let's go ahead and just grab some polys. It's not that important what we grab here. Okay, now how you assign materials in Modo is you hit the M key. Okay, and it brings up a set material. All right, so let's not apply the default material because that's the only one. Let's apply a new one. Let's just call it temp. Okay. And then it's going to ask us, we can quickly tune just some of the main parameters. So let's make it red just so we can see the difference. And we'll leave diffuse 80 and force specular, doesn't matter. Okay. So now see what's happened here. We can see that material. We've tagged these polygons with that material. All right. Now what did this do in the shader tree? Okay. This little green with the red dot indicates a group. A group is simply a mask. It is a mask. It is a container for all things in it. And this group level here, this layer, is actually what is indicating which polygons are tagged. So if you look at it, it says all items, but it could be any item. Like I could go tag this material, let's grab this one and I could hit M, and I could say tag it with, not default, but tag it with temp. Okay, now it's showing up there because what it's done is it's added these polygons to this layer mask right here. Okay, so inside of it, what does it have? It has a material. Now this is the base material. This is the default base material it creates. This material has the exact same parameters, okay, as this material. The difference is it lives inside this layer mask, and it's saying tag that. Now if I move this up out of this group, everything is now, you see, because it's over the top of this base material, just like in Photoshop. This is just a layer, a fill layer basically, with all these material parameters that's over your base material. So let's put it back in that group. Okay. So anyways, you see now that when you're selecting and you're hitting M, you're just tagging for a mask. Okay. All right. So now that we know that, let's get into Let's get into more advanced things. Okay. Let's actually talk about the round edge shader. And here's how I'll show you that. Let's use this temp material we set up. Okay. So in any material, like I said, any green ball here, any standard material, if we hit the O key over this panel, it'll expand. That's what any panel you hit the O key over, it'll expand it all the way. Okay. So down at the bottom of every material is your rounded edge parameters. Those are right here. Okay. Your rounded edge width is how wide the width of the roundness will be. The rounded edge angle is the threshold of the angle, like the angle here of the polygons, before the round edge width is applied. Okay, and then the smoothing angle is the actual Modo actually smooths by like has a smoothing built into the material. So Modo smooths in a number of ways, and this is just how your geometry is automatically smooth. See the cylinder, how it's actually smooth right here? That's because these are less than the angle threshold, or greater, I can't really say. If this was more, wider like this, you'd see it. So if I lower this smoothing threshold or smoothing angle down to like 5%, or I'm sorry, I raise it up to like 60%. See how things get smoother on a per material basis. Now, you can also set smoothing groups as you would in 3D Studio Max. You can also grab edges and define hard edges as in Maya. Okay, so Modo has all of these methods, which is really cool. And we're going to have to tweak this a little bit to get our round edge shader to look right, but I'll give you these values. Now, quick note about that, 0 to unexpand that. I've scaled this leg up, or down actually quite a bit, to the scale of something a little more real world scale, which is the scale we work in at my studio, Rainbow Studios. So there's values that I'm going to give you, and those will be ideal for items at this scale. Your round edge parameters do depend on the size of your items. Okay, your objects in your scene. This rounded edge width will be artifacty if it's too great, and it's all based on the size of your scene. So if you have items that are much bigger or smaller than this, the values I might give you for this might not be that great, and you can just tune these and play with these until you get it looking right. Okay. So anyway, let's actually apply some width here. So let's go. Let's put this pretty round at. Let's go 2 millimeters so you can see what it's doing. Okay. Now let's go ahead and go into our render tab, because you have to render it to be able to see it. All right. So see here, wherever there's red, we have a really nice rounded result, okay, on the edges. See that? Really nice. Now don't worry about this faceting. I'm going to show you how to use the round edge shader with Catmull-Clark, a subdivided model, basically subdivision surface model, to get rid of the smoothing and also retain the round edge. It's a little more advanced, so we'll get to that later. We're actually going to add edge creases, and that'll tell where the round edge shader needs to be applied. So we'll get into that later, but you can see the effect. Okay, it's rounding that out really nicely. We can drop that down like 750 nanometers and see how that tightened that in a lot more on that edge there. All right, so this is what we want. We're going to be applying this to models that are this simple, literally. Like this is just this simple, and then we're going to subdivide that and bake it down onto a copy of the one that's unsubdivided, just like this, into a normal map. So it's going to be pretty awesome. So now that we've got just one example of the rounded edge shader set up, this isn't actually how we're going to do it. We're not going to tag with M, okay? We're going to use selection sets instead. So let me go ahead and just hide this layer, okay? If we do this and we tag with M, let's say I want like this to be like black plastic, this center part, okay? And then I want like this guy to be metal, whatever, like that guy around there to be metal. You get the point. So then you've got all these material groups, and you've got round edge shaders inside that. And then let's say I tag this for a large round edge, because we're going to set up a large, medium, small, and even extra large just in case. So we're not just going to have one value of round edge. Okay, we're going to set up 4 different groups with 4 different values, so you can get tighter edges, gummier edges, all of that kind of variation, which is what you need if you want this to be a good high quality game asset. Okay, but if we tag it on a per material basis, it gets really hard to, if I tag this medium and then I'm like, oh, I want it more round, I need it large, it gets really hard to cumbersome to flip those back and forth. Okay, so you can play with your values. So the easiest way to do it, and I learned this from Torfrick, okay, is to tag it with selection sets. All right, so let me show you how to do that manually. All right, so before we can set up the material, let me go ahead and make a selection set so I can show you this. All right, so let's select some polygons. In fact, let's just select this whole piece, and then we'll tag over it. So we've got some polygons selected. Go up to Select. I'm going to show you how to do this manually, and you're going to see why it sucks, and then we're going to do it with my custom pie menu. Okay, so go to Select, Assign Selection Set. Let's call this one Large. Okay, and the name does matter, but whatever you call it here is what will It'll be everywhere else, okay? And we want mode add because we're adding polygons to a selection set. If no selection set with this name exists, it will create the selection set and then add polygons to it, okay? So let's make that. All right, now nothing happened because all we've got is a selection set. So if I deselect and I say use selection set, mode select, okay, large, it selects those polys because they've been tagged. If you need to see this or you need to select everything faster in your lists here under, let's see, what is it? Other maps? Under weight maps? No, let's go to polygon by selection set. It's been created, okay, in your lists. So now there's a selection set called large, and we will now there's a selection set called temp too, but that's not how we created it. It's actually a material, okay, but it will show up in your list. So now we can select or deselect polygons with large. Okay, just know that that lives there. All right, so let's go back to item properties here. Okay, so now that we have that tagged, we have that selection set created, let's go into our shader tree again, and let's manually create the group for the rounded shader large. So let's go up to add layer. Let's add a group. Now this doesn't have, we want it not inside there. We don't want it inside temp, okay? I'm just going to delete temp so it doesn't confuse anyone. So now we have this group which will mask off polygons, but we haven't told it what to mask yet, okay? Let's go ahead and tell it what to do. So down here, under the with this selected in item properties, okay, it's enabled, that's great. Blend mode, normal, opacity, great. Now item all, we want that because we want to be able to tag any polygons on any item with large, with the tag large, the selection set large. So instead of polygon tag type material, let's change that to selection set. And now for polygon tag, now that we've selected selection set, under polygon tag, large will show up because we've tagged them with the large selection set. Okay. So now that that group's made and it knows what to mask off, let's put something inside it. Let's go to add layer and let's say material. And it's automatically put that inside the selected group. Okay, and we've got our default material with gray. Okay, let's change that back to something else just so you can see. So see how it's masked off just what we have in that selection set. So you know your group is working. Okay, I'm going to undo that and I'll show you why in a minute. All right, so now we have something that's masked off that we can set round edge parameters for. So since this is called large, let's set that up. Let's make the rounded edge width, I found 2 millimeters to be really good for large. Okay. Let's go ahead and make the smoothing angle 25 degrees. Okay, so we can get something a little more faceted. And let's make the round edge angle 5 degrees. Okay, so we've really cranked those. Okay, is it? I think maybe it's 25 and 5. No, I think that was right. Okay, this is all trial and error how I've arrived at these conclusions. Okay. So the reason we set a low smoothing angle is so that it doesn't smooth the model. If I crank this up too high, like 60, anywhere it's smooth, it's not going to apply the round edge. The round edge width is only applied to hard edges. And you'll see this here in a moment when we start creasing the model, why this needs to be so low. Okay, because right now you would say, well, that's going to look okay. Really, it's not, because it's going to give me, it's going to help when it's unsubdivided, but when it's subdivided, it won't help. Because when I smooth this model with Shift Tab, see, everything goes soft, and then I have to start creasing these, and we still want all these faceted areas to not have the round edge shader applied. You'll see in a moment. I won't get into that just yet. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and do one more thing. So instead of actually changing the color of the material, let's not, because we want more control. I don't want to change it because it's obnoxious to see red and purple and green everywhere we have different, clown vomit colors, everywhere we have different round edge, but we do want to see them once we get these other ones set up so we can see where the large is, where the medium is really easily. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to add a constant. So let's add layer. Let's go to processing and grab a constant. Okay, now it's immediately going to come in with the effect of diffuse color, and that is what we want. Okay, just We just want a constant with a specific color so we can see what's happening. Let's make it blue. Okay, let's maybe not that blue. Maybe something like that. Okay. So this is only affecting the diffuse color channel. Okay, now we have something we can toggle on and off quickly, and we can see where our large round edge is applied. Okay. All right, now we have this. What we're going to do is we need to set up the medium, small, and extra large. So to do that, let's do this. First, we have to tag some polygons with those amounts. So let's tag that. Let's do that. Let's go here and let's loop this, and let's expand it by maybe that one. Let's go ahead and loop. Whoops, didn't know which way to go. L for loop. Let's expand it to there. Okay, and then let's grab these guys. Loop these guys. Gosh, it's just having trouble here looping. All right, let's not grab those guys. Let's try it one more time. Loop them. Nope. Alrighty. I don't know why it's not looping. Let's just tag these guys, okay? So instead of going up here and saying select and assigning selection set, yada yada, I've got basically macros set up for this. And they live in my custom pie menu. So this is going to be much faster. So instead, just hit your hotkey that you assigned my pie menu to. For me, it's Alt-Q. Go to round edge tags, let go of Q, and then say tag medium. Okay. Now what this is going to do is it's going to actually create a selection set called medium and tag those polygons. Okay. Unfortunately, it looks like I used lowercase, so let's go ahead and delete selection set large, okay? And let's apply large again, just to all these, okay? We're using my menu here because the name does matter. All right, so now we have both of those set up, okay? The difference is this guy. Let's go to polygon tag and change it to large lowercase. Okay, now we're good to go. Sorry about that, guys. Spelling does matter because it's the actual name of the tag. All right, so now that we've got all this, let's go ahead and instance this folder. So let's go to right-click, instance. Okay. Now we need to change a few things. Okay, but the good thing is that any change we make to this material or this constant, whether we want to decide we are want a metallic texture, so we change the color and the specular and all that, that's going to propagate up to this material. All right. So let's change what it's tagging here. Let's go to large and let's change it to polygon tag medium. Okay. Now that should work. Change it to medium. Okay. All right. So under this, let's find out if it's working. And to find that out, let's change the color of our constant. Under texture layers here, top tab on the right. Okay. Let's change it to red. So it's working. And what happens is when you have an instance of a shader or of any kind of material layer here, any of these layers, you instance, the first time you change a parameter in the instance, it breaks the connection to the material for only that parameter. All right, so to show you this, I'm going to go into the material medium, and I'm going to change the rounded edge width. It's hidden down here. You click this arrows. Rounded edge width from 2 millimeters to 750 nanometers. Okay, UM. All right, so now if I go to and see what's happened here, let me pull this up. Everywhere it's purple, it means that these are instanced. Okay, so these let's see. They're still instanced. So anywhere we have the purple, those parameters are instanced back to the other material. I'm wondering why. Let's instance this guy, create instance. Let's delete this guy here. Let's grab the instance in italics and drag it up into our medium group. Oh, no, that was right. Okay. So this is instanced. Anything we do in this large material will be instanced up here. But if I change the round edge width here to 750 nanometers UM, see what happened? That purple dot went away, meaning we've broken the link to just that parameter in this instance. But if I change rounded edge angle or smoothing angle or any of that stuff in this large material here that's not italicized, it will propagate to this material. So that makes it much easier. So now your large material is your master, basically. Let's go to our render tab. And so you can see we've got our rounded edges, okay? And it looks pretty good. But we've still got this faceting to deal with, right? So we've got our medium here. We've got our larger. You can see it's much fatter. Okay, much fatter. Too fat for this object, but this is a good example. Okay, this is looking more like what I want up there, and then maybe even a small one down here. So we still got to deal with this faceting, right? So let's go ahead and deal with that. The way to do this is we've already set up our angle thresholds correctly in our large material. This is the only one we want to tune for those parameters, okay? Because then it's going to propagate to our instance. We've set them very low, and that is because when I smooth this, you get a very low threshold of an angle between polygons. You don't get that faceting. So this is too muddy, right? Because it's collapsed my model. So the way to do this is we're going to select edges, and then we're going to give them a 100% crease value, and that's going to hold the model integrity and keep our low poly the same volume as the high poly, and also tell our round edge shader where to be applied. So let me just double click these edges. Okay, let's harden these. Get this guy back here too. All right, and to do this, it is very simple. You hit Shift W, that's your edge weight tool. Okay, I've got it to auto activate. You would click in the viewport and then set the weight. I've got show weight checked just so I can be sure. Set that to 100%. Okay, and hit Q. The reason why 100% is because it doesn't matter what it is, but we need it 100% sharp. We need it just as sharp as it is here. The reason why is so you don't lose volume on your model when you smooth it. Okay, so now when I hit Shift Tab, we don't lose like any volume here on the edges, but it smooths out all the faceting of our cylinder. All right, this is perfect. This is what we want. Now, the reason 100%, let me just, to clarify this, let's make sure that this item's selected. Okay, let's go to material, go to surface. Okay, and when we Shift Tab, we Catmull-Clark subdivide the model, which is what you want. I've set my subdivision levels to be 3. I find that nicer. You can set the default for what every item is created at in the preferences, and you can see where that is in the first video, where the preferences are. Okay, but so if I smooth at 30%, like if I, let's say I take this and I Shift W, and instead of 100%, I go 30%. It gives you the same result, okay, because, well, 29 won't, because you can Shift Drag and set your creases that way as well. Okay, you still get that 100% crease, but what we don't get is peace of mind and a way to easily select these edges using a set of scripts that I'll talk about here in just a moment, and I've got a link to and everything, all that good stuff, for your UV mapping later, and also just if you need to adjust your values later on. Okay, this makes it much easier. So just do 100%. Okay, it makes it much easier to select all those edges. So let's see what the result is. Let's go to our render tab. All right, now we're looking nice, right? Because we don't have, let me show you the difference. We don't have this faceted thing. We've got a really nice cylinder. Now this cylinder may or may not have enough spans unsmoothed to bake down into a normal map. You might want to give it just a couple more spans around, but from this distance, I think it'll be just fine. Okay. So you have to be cognizant of the roundness of your silhouette when you're modeling for the rounded shader. Like I probably would have given this 16. That would have been good. Okay. So now that we've got that set, you can go through the process of going through your model, setting up tags, and creasing your edges. Okay. And we're going to worry about the low poly later. This will be a duplicate of this. These items will be your low poly. So just make sure you're giving your cylinders and your rounded surfaces enough spans for the low poly silhouette. Okay. Let's finish this video up by just making our last couple groups. All right, so let's select some polys. Let's Alt-Q, round edge tags, tag small. Now that we've got that tag, let's set up extra large. We don't really have anything that calls for it. It's definitely the lesser used, but let's just set up some. Okay, so you can see. Let's make this loop here, and let's expand that loop once. It'll probably look pretty bad because extra large is pretty fat, So let's go round edge tags. Let's say tag extra large. Okay. Now that we've done that, it's created our selection sets. So we can do this. We can instance always off the large. So we're going to instance this, instance that group 2 times. Okay, we're going to drag 1 above the medium and 1 below large. Okay, so let's expand large again. And collapse medium, we don't need to do anything with that anymore. So now you can see it's replaced this because I have a group over medium that's an instance of the large, so it had that blue color on the constant. So let's go ahead and tune these now. All right, so the only thing we want to tune is in the material. Well, first of all, let's change the name so we can see what we're doing. Let's change this to small, and let's change the polygon tag from large to small. All right, and let's do the same thing on extra large. Just do slow clicks on those to rename. Extra large, change the polygon tag to extra large. All right, so now let's change the constant. Let's make it a different color. Let's go to texture layer here, and let's make the color green. All right, and let's go to extra large constant. Let's make it purple. All right, something like that. Whoops, I pinned it on accident. All right, so this brings up a great point, and I'll show you here in a second. So let's make our extra large material rounded edge width. Let's make it 4 millimeters. It's going to probably give us artifacts on this item, but that's okay. And let's go up to our small, and let's make it 400 nanometers. Okay. So we've got our values in place. We have 400 nanometers. We have 750 nanometers, 2 millimeters, and 4 millimeters. Okay, let's collapse everything but large. We don't need to work on these anymore. Okay, so small went on fine. The reason why small went on fine is because it's above medium in the shader tree. Okay, it's above our medium material. So if we turn off small, see what's happening? It's above it. So that's okay. That'll render correctly, and that's going to be fine. But we're not seeing our extra large. Why is that? Well, because it's beneath large. Okay, and this is what we want. This bottom up, extra large to small, I recommend. Okay, for this workflow. Let's just harden these edges real quick. Shift W, and let's give it 100%, and let's hit Q to drop the tool. Okay, so how do we remedy this? Well, this is what I was saying with my radial. Let's loop that selection, and let's expand it once. I think I expanded it once. And now let's bring up instead of going up here and saying select, assign selection set, change the mode to remove, and then saying remove from large, okay? Let's just go to my radial, go to round edge tags, and let's say remove large. Okay, now see it's coming through because we had these polygons tagged large over extra large. Okay, so you can see how easy this makes this with this radial, right? So we're going to expand that. We're going to say, let's look at this real quick. Let's see. What does that look like? Okay, we've got our small. And another handy thing about the instancing is if you go into our large and we turn off our constant, it turns off, for some reason this instance link got broken to medium, but it turns off all of the constants. Okay, see how it turned off small? Let's just create instance. Let's re-establish that connection. Okay, let's delete the old one. Let's make the material color red. Okay, so now when I turn this on, it turns off. When I toggle my large constant here, it toggles them all on and off. So that's why you want instances as well. So let's look at this. This looks pretty good. Small's looking really nice in there. Medium looking pretty good. Large getting a bit doughy, but it depends on what you want, right? See how doughy it is in here? That's looking really good. If you really want that soft, look, it's starting to. Those are just shadow artifacts there from the viewport. But when I look back here, it's looking okay. It's pretty wide though. It's pretty fat. So let's go to Model tab. Let's go ahead and turn on our constants so we can see what's what. Let's just tag a medium. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, and it's still a little fat. And the reason why is let me show you another thing, and we'll get more into this in another video, but real quickly, we have our medium tag here and we have large, so it's transitioning from large to medium. Okay, that is why you're getting this transition's okay. It's just flattening it out a little bit. But if you go from really big, like if I went from extra large to medium or small, you'd get a really awkward artifact there because it's going from so round and then abruptly to less round. So if this will fix it, if I let's turn on my constant here. If I make an edge loop and I hit 2 to go to edges, hit Shift C is my add loop. It's also under edge add loop. Okay, let's add an edge loop here. Doesn't matter how close it is. You want it at least enough past the rounded. And let's tag these polys. Let's loop them. Now let's tag these. We don't have to remove large. We could remove large here and just have them be nothing. But since medium is above large, we could also just tag medium. Okay, so now when we go to render, okay, and I turn off my constant so it's easier to see it. See that nice transition? And you don't get anything on the flat, okay, because it's below those angle thresholds that we set up. So you get no effect here where the transition is happening. You're only getting the transition on the edge. So this is the only difference. When we duplicate this later to make our low poly model, a few of these holding edges will have to go delete out. All right, just for the sake of the round edge shader, but they're just creating extra polys we won't need in the low poly once we've baked the normal maps. All right, so I think that we've gone over a lot of this. Shift tab, again, subdivides, 100% creasing. Let me just quickly show you what I do to get my edge weights instead. So let's go over here and grab an edge or two. I use Etherea's edge weight tools, okay, and I have a link here under video 10, round edge shader. Okay, I have a link to these scripts. Okay, and he has a few collections. I use a couple of them. Swiss Knife is really nice. What he's done is he's collected a bunch of scripts from a bunch of Modo scripters and compiled them into nice little neat organized layouts and grouped them together and given them nice icons and stuff like that. So instead of hitting Shift W and manipulating your edge weights that way, let's just go ahead and open Etherea's weight tools. And in that link I provided, it'll show you how to install this. It's very easy, okay? And let's just set 100%, okay? 100%, okay? Now it gives all those edge weight of 100%. If I want to reset them to 0, hit reset edge weight to 0. Now the reason I suggest using these scripts is because if down the road, for whatever reason, I need to remove these edge weights, I can say here, I could say select hard edges, and this will, as you can see from the tooltip, select all edges with an edge weight greater than 90%. Okay, so I just do 100% because there's 90%, and it won't grab them if you do 90. You have to have 95 or 100. So if I select no edges and I hit this guy, it knows all of the edges on my model, if this whole thing was done, that have been edge weighted. And this can be very useful for UV mapping, right? Because a lot of times we want to get these hard edges and put UV cuts, maybe not, in a lot of these places, but this is extremely useful, okay, for a number of reasons. So Etherea's weight tools, I totally recommend it. It gives you all the functionality of the crease set editor in Maya, so I would recommend installing those scripts, okay. So that's going to wrap up this video. I know it's getting a little complicated. I'm going to do, in the next video, we're actually going to just model something. We're going to model it for the round edge shader. I'm going to show you all of the pointers there. You're going to learn a little bit more about Modo modeling, and we're going to learn a lot about troubleshooting errors that come up when modeling for the round edge shader in Modo. So let's go ahead and do that video next.